Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to the Mayor's Emergency Response Roundtable once again. You know, oftentimes education is on the top agenda at the state and federal level. I've read once when I was in graduate school that it has been number one on many people's political agenda at times, but somehow war, famine, or politics end up taking its place and it goes to 2 or 3 or 4. But it's always one of those top issues that we as a community and as a country continue to talk about. So today's roundtable is just about that education, that topic, education right here in Chesapeake. We hope to share with you some information that where our school system is going, and we are so proud to have our superintendent, Dr. Jared Cotton, as well as a principal from my alma mater, Jeff Johnson. Jeff is a principal at Great Bridge High School, the mighty green and gold tradition and pride. So welcome both of you. So Dr. Cotton, first of all, I do need to make sure I announce to everyone, because people will say, well, why don't you have your mask? As I say in our council meetings, you know, we are 6 feet apart. Everybody up here is fully vaccinated, and we continue to practice that social distance. So just for clarity and speech, we're not wearing our mask for this conversation. So Dr. Cotton, let me just turn it over to you to begin this topic.
Great, thank you. I'm happy to be here again, and we're excited to talk about several topics today. The one that's on everyone's mind is graduation. So we're excited that we're going to actually be able to have a graduation. What happened last year went really well. I've received a lot of great feedback from our families. We had to do kind of a drive-through graduation last year, but it was special, and our schools really stepped up to make our students and families feel special about the event. But this year we have a different plan that I think our families are really going to like, and I brought, as you've said, one of our awesome principals from one of our high schools, which is also my alma mater, Great Bridge High School, Mr. Jeff Johnson. I'm going to let him talk to you a little bit about what graduation will look like this year.
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Cotton. And I got to tell you, we're all excited. All 7 high school principals are excited that we're going to be able to take our kids over to Old Dominion this year, SB Ballard Stadium, and we're going to graduate those kids as a group. And last year, unfortunately, our kids couldn't do that due to the circumstances, but this year we can. And I can tell you the feedback I'm getting from the seniors and the senior parents is unbelievable. They're super excited about it. This will be the first time that this group has gotten together in over a year.
Wow.
So,
wow.
Yeah, it's going to be a great thing, so we're looking forward to it.
I can imagine you are. I mean, after last year, and you did what you had to do last year, obviously, but I remember being in that school, and you've got a pulse for what the kids are feeling and what the parents are feeling. So I'm sure your enthusiasm is shared by teachers, parents, students throughout. So I know there's a lot of excitement there, right? And everybody is ready to roll. However, there's always that risk thing. So what kind of mitigations are you using to keep the guests and the graduates safe?
Well, we're fortunate enough to be able to offer our guests, or 6 guests per graduate, so we're excited about that opportunity. Those guests will be required to sit together in the stadium as a family. They'll be distanced 6 feet from the next family beside them, which is also important. It will be a touchless ceremony in the sense that we will not be distributing things to students. They'll pick those up. So there'll be no transmission opportunities there for anything. And everybody will wear masks. Our teachers on the field will wear masks. Our seniors will wear masks. Everybody in the stands will have masks on. And actually, we're ordering special masks for each of our graduates. So we're super excited about that too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Now, so are they actually walking up to? They're not. You're not handing them a diploma, but are they doing a walk?
No. So when the student gets there with their families, the families will be seated.
Okay.
And then the students will have an assigned seat.
Okay.
And then in that assigned seat, there'll be some information, diploma covers, diplomas, and things like that. So those things will be set up in time before they get there. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
So are there any other things that you're doing to celebrate this 2021 graduation?
Oh, yeah. And it was really an event. One of my favorites is one of the events that we hosted last year, Light Up the Night. So that's going to be on Friday the 11th. And what that means for us at Great Bridge is that we use our stadium. And on the east end of the stadium, parents will decorate their cars with their seniors, and their families will be together, and they'll drive through the stadium on the east end. come out of the west end, and we'll have our teachers out there. We'll be social distancing, wearing masks, and follow all the safety medication. But it's an awesome event. It's a celebration, so we're looking forward to that again this year.
So the lights, people are going to light up, use their car lights, right?
They're going to use their car lights. So we're going to have our stadium lights on, and on our scoreboard, we're going to have 2021, class of 2021.
Okay, at the stadium on Cullen Hall.
Yep.
Ah, that's interesting. I have to tell you, it brings back a memory that when I was student activities director at Great Bridge in the early mid-'70s, Mr. Blevins, Harry Blevins was our principal, Jimmy Calhoun's assistant principal, and I remember that night well. The time came, it was starting to get dark, and Mr. Blevins motioned to Neil Hoffman, one of the teachers, to turn the stadium lights on, and unfortunately, the lights did not come on. And so everybody brought cars up around, but I don't think that was a planned event like this is. Very exciting, very exciting. Dr. Cotton, could you tell us what the rest of the school year will look like and how you got there?
Sure. We've been working hard all year to keep our students in school as much as possible. And our elementary students have been in school 5 days a week starting in September, and they've remained there all year, which we're proud of. Our middle and high schools, we had to offer the blended hybrid approach, where the students would attend 2 days a week in person, and the rest of the week, the other 3 days would be virtual, working from home. And then, of course, what we did was we started bringing back priority students who are in danger of not graduating. I know Mr. Johnson's well aware of that. Students who may have failed one core content area or another, they were invited to come back for 4 days a week. And then students who had attendance issues and other concerns, we brought them back first to 4 days a week, because we're limited on space in our secondary schools. Our secondary classrooms are smaller, our students are larger, and of course, trying to fit as many students in a classroom and keeping that 3 feet of distance has been a challenge throughout this whole process. So we're trying to bring as many back as we can. And our principals did a great job of bringing those priority students back. And then now we've opened it up to bring back additional students who would like to come back extra days. Mr. Johnson, do you want to talk a little bit about that? Because you've been involved in that process.
Yeah, and it has been a process. So, Dr. Cotton put that information out, and so we had parents immediately reaching out to us trying to get students back in the building, which was a good thing. So we had some option 1 students who just weren't coming to school, so we had to reach out to them and make sure we moved them to option 2 to create space for these other students who wanted to come out. And I can say right now, Great Bridge High School, as of yesterday, we had 3 students on the list that want to come back that we weren't able to work with as of yesterday, but we're still working on that, and we're going to try to get them in. But, there's a lot of reasons why these kids need to be back in school. So we're trying to support those kids and get them in there as much as we can, and it's working.
It really does seem like you're using a very common sense approach to this. I'm sure, Dr. Cotton, as I hear Jeff talking about him, there seems to be collaboration. You just didn't make these decisions, create a plan, and tell people to do it. It sounds to me like you listened, you kind of, and let people find the solutions, which I always found to be a great thing. So let me ask about the kids that are in trouble that you brought back for 4 days. I know my daughter teaches in another city, and she was lamenting to me the other day just how many kids are not going to be able to graduate, and she was really disturbed about that. So you made a great effort. It makes a lot of sense. Do you have any concept or any idea of how much difference that made? What percentage of kids are going to make it now as a result of that? Either one of you?
Well, Mr. Johnson can talk specifically about Great Bridge, but I will tell you that we have a lot of students who've been very successful with virtual learning. And you've heard me say this before. Virtual learning works, but not for every child. Mm-hmm. Some children really need more in-person instruction. And one of the things we've also learned, as we'll talk about a little bit later on, is as we plan for the future, we need to keep a virtual option in place for students, because we have found that it really fits their schedule, it fits their best way of learning, and for some students, they need that flexibility of the virtual. But there are other students who really need that in person, and that's why we worked hard to make sure that we offer that. And do you want to speak a little bit about how in-person has made a difference at your school?
Oh, yeah. In some cases with certain groups of students, it was immediate. I mean, as soon as we got those kids back in the classroom and they had that in-person piece, their grades started elevating and their moods were getting better. I mean, it was just a total transformation. So that was exciting for us at Great Bridge High School to see. Our faculty was really on board with that.
So you're not only seeing academic improvements, you're seeing social, which is, one of the major purposes of public education
Oh,
for
yeah.
socialization. So you're seeing that as well.
The whole student, absolutely.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that comes to mind once again about why it's so good not to use the one-size-fits-all approach to things is, in my daughter's school, for example, most of her kids do not have a home environment where virtual learning is a good thing. And so, they probably need to get everybody back as soon as possible because of that. So but you have probably a lot of kids that do have sufficient support at home and are getting that kind of help, and makes this type of learning quite well. Probably for me, I would have probably been hunting or fishing when I was supposed to be doing the virtual learning, and then you become mayor. Anyway, let's get off of that subject and talk about next year. What does the fall look like, Dr. Cobb?
Well, we just recently presented plans for the fall of next year, and we are planning for in-person instruction to be the primary mode of instruction. 5 days a week is our plan, K through 12. And we've already put that out there as the primary mode of instruction. However, we need to offer a virtual option, which we are going to offer for next year through application. As you heard me say earlier, some students did very well with virtual, some not so much. So virtual learning is probably not a viable option for those students. We definitely want to encourage in-person, in particular for the early learners who are learning to read in the primary grades and so forth. That's very difficult to learn virtually. Also, some of our special needs students who need special services, some of those can't happen as effectively through virtual means. We can make it happen, and we have, but for some students and families, they need that in person. But we are going to offer the virtual option through application. Real excited about what we're offering at the high school level. We're offering our Chesapeake Virtual Academy, CVA, which is going to be our 100% virtual academy, as well as students can apply to go 100% online, or they can go part-time online, which is really exciting. Wow. Where they can take a couple in-person classes and maybe a couple virtual or one virtual, and students can go to a location in the school building to participate, or even better, which you would have appreciated as a student, come in later to do in person.
After the hunting, fishing.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
or leave early, especially if you need to go to a job and you can take a class online. So we've already recruited teachers to provide either the full-time or the part-time virtual. But what's exciting about that is our long-term plan over the next 3 years is we're going to offer the CVA, or Chesapeake Virtual Academy, for middle and then elementary schools. So we're going to implement one level each year. High school starts this coming year. But what we're going to do for elementary and middle school students...
Well, let me interrupt
sure.
you just to say, if we go back to that. From the high school perspective, I have to tell you, what you're telling me is mind-blowing. Because you remember the time we spent so much time making sure kids stayed on campus, didn't leave for lunch, and now you're pretty much saying they can come and go as their schedule fits. This is just a real paradigm change, and I think it's very exciting.
Yeah, we really need to focus on the student. We need to be learner-centered. And what's challenged me from the time I arrived back in Chesapeake is we have students with particular circumstances that really require them to have a more flexible schedule or to have part of the day online. And we do not want to hold a student back from great opportunities. We've had some athletes, for example, who are involved in some intensive training. We even have some who are potential Olympic hopefuls that are, as an example, that we've had to really work with them on the schedule. And we don't want to tell them, I'm sorry, your plan doesn't fit into our school schedule that we offer.
So I want to
day.
come back to the elementary on this very topic, but while we're on that,
Yeah.
if I could go to you, Mr. Johnson, as a high school principal.
Mm-hmm.
Now, were you in those days like I was, where you put
yeah.
guards out to make sure they didn't leave for the
Yeah,
lunch?
and-
So what does this mean to you?
It's a shift in mindset. It really is. And I think as educators, we really need to look at what we're doing and what we're providing kids. And at the end of the day, our job as educators is to support kids where they are. provide them those flexibilities and the resources they need to be successful.
Are there any logistic concerns that you have about all this?
I don't.
Oh, well,
I'm enjoying it. I think we're going in the right direction. We're serving kids where they are, what they need, and it's going to be great for everybody.
yeah, I guess that's really the awesome thing is when you're doing what you know that makes a difference and is the right thing to do, whatever efforts involved doesn't seem like an effort because
Right.
the reward's there. Awesome. I am so impressed with this. Okay, sorry, I got carried away on this one. It was just such a great idea. Next.
And what's exciting about this is, what I keep saying is that when we come out of this pandemic, a lot of people say the new normal. When we had George Curro speak to our teachers and staff, he said we want the new and better normal. And one of the things that I'm very excited about is as we navigate through this, as you've heard me say before, we're putting things in place now that are going to be in place long after the pandemic, like the one-to-one technology, the virtual academy that we've talked about, and lots of other opportunities. But for next year, for elementary and middle school, we don't have the Chesapeake Virtual Academy ready because it takes time to build that system. So we're going to offer Virtual Virginia, which offers a virtual program now for all grade levels, really, but for K through 8, we're going to offer those to families. So if families apply for that option, the school division is going to pay their tuition for the students to participate in Virtual Virginia. That is a year-long commitment because we do need to pay for the year for their child to participate. So we asked them to make a year-long commitment for that virtual program. And the virtual program is going to have some synchronous, some asynchronous, meaning some real-time lessons and then some lessons that happen outside of school hours or that are done independently by the students. And it's also going to follow a little bit of a different schedule, which we shared at our last board meeting. Virtual Virginia serves all of the state, and some of our school divisions start earlier than we do. So it's going to start the end of August and get out. The good thing is it gets out before the end of May, so they get out a little earlier. But we did tell our families that they'll follow that schedule, and we did a family webinar recently to answer all the questions related to that, and that's recorded and posted on our website. So if families want to go back and take a look at that, because I know it's an important decision that they make, but we wanted to offer that option.
Got to be a very stressful decision for parents to make that kind of choice. Do you have any idea of what percentage are going to go, especially in the middle school? I think back on as we went from junior high to middle school, we built middle schools to meet the social, emotional, and intellectual needs of children. And so I guess they're going to have to find another place to get those social needs met.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you said that, because one of the things we've learned too with the Virtual Virginia is students, we can't leave them out there on their own devices. We need to help them and support them. So part of what we're going to do is we're going to assign staff members in the school buildings to serve as coaches, who are going to monitor students, check in with them, check on their wellness and their social emotional needs as well as their academic needs. And we're going to provide stipends to those staff members who serve in those capacities. So because we want to make sure that we don't have students out there in the virtual world who are not getting the support they need. So that's going to be a part of what we're going to do moving forward. We anticipate probably about maybe 20% or so might take advantage of this. We had about, I want to say 60% in person, around 40% virtual. And when we started the second semester, more students came back to in person because the parents and the students felt safe about with the mitigation strategies that we had in place in our schools. Some more came back, and frankly, a lot of them visited our school to see what we were doing to keep students and staff safe, and then they felt comfortable sending their students back. So we're estimating around 20%. We're collecting applications now. We do have a deadline of May 21st, which is much earlier than what we presented last school year, but we really need to know sooner than later so that we can plan, because we need to know exactly how many students are coming back to in person so that we can make arrangements to accommodate them.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. But from the parent standpoint, they're going to be looking at, what's it going to look like out there in August, late August, September, in terms of the pandemic. And so let me use this opportunity to say, please, to Chesapeake residents, we do need to get more people vaccinated so that plans like this can take place in a safer environment. So I do want to encourage you all to have your children and your parents and everyone vaccinated as soon as possible. So another important aspect of public education, of course, to many is the sports thing. What's that going to look like for next year?
Well, that's been a challenge all year for us to work through that. And Mr. Johnson may want to talk a little bit about how it's going athletic-wise. Of course, he had 2 state championships at Great Bridge High School.
Thank you, Dr. Cotton. I was going to brag a little bit just to start that. Our field hockey
go.
team and our cheering team won state titles this year. And we have some strong spring teams out there. Our coaches are doing a great job. My athletic director, Sean Townsend, is doing a great job of making sure they know what they can do, what they can't do. Schools want to have teams out there playing, so they're doing the right thing to make sure that they can do that. And that's going to carry over into the fall. Athletics is a huge piece of serving our students in Chesapeake, and we want to continue to do that. And one thing we were talking about earlier, I think it's important to mention, when we're talking about these students who will be virtually next year, they're still attached to their zone school. So Dr. Cotton mentioned the athletes that are world-class athletes. I have a number of those and have had those over the years. If they decide to do virtual because of the training piece, then they'll still be attached to Great Bridge High School if they live in my zone.
And therefore can participate in any
Absolutely.
any athletic or extracurricular?
Any of that.
Okay.
Yeah, they're still a student of Great Bridge High School. They're in my zone, so we're going to serve them in that capacity.
I see. Wow, this is a lot, a lot of change.
Yeah, and of course, Mr. Johnson was talking about finishing out this year, but as of right now, fall sports are planned to start on time. And this past year we had fall in the spring.
Right.
But
it's really interesting reading about the Oscar Smith State Championship at this time of year. Exactly.
So July 29th is the date that they're planning for now, as long as nothing changes. And middle school sports will start on the first day of school. I know that's a concern. We had to do some intramurals for middle school just so the students can have some activities for the spring. But we've really put middle school on hold. We've been prioritizing high school athletics, in particular varsity. Mm-hmm. So our hope is that next year we can move forward with athletics.
So to be clear, you're basically going to go back to the schedule. Spring sports will be spring sports, fall, and so forth.
That's the plan, unless something changes, but that's the plan that we've been given right now, that we're going to go back to athletics on normal schedule next year.
Now, do you know what the other school systems are doing with that? Because obviously, you play other schools.
Well, I think they're doing the same. And of course, we're in the Southeastern District, so we will continue to collaborate with them.
Right.
But we're anticipating that will be the same. Again, that's the plan. But I always say that's the plan, because we know that things, if we've learned anything this year, we all have these great plans and then they change pretty frequently.
Exactly.
So I hope that this will happen, because we know athletics are so important to our students.
Well, let's just all hope that 2021 will get to be back to I sometimes say back to abnormal. So I mentioned the vaccines and how important it is. What about employees? How are we doing with their vaccinations, and what's our plan with that?
Yeah, we had 3 rounds of vaccination clinics that we had in our schools, and I know we talked about this before. We were proud that we were one of the first school districts in our region to start this process, mm-hmm. and I give kudos to Dr. Welch and her partnership with the school system, because she felt strongly that in order to keep our students in school, we had to offer the vaccine to our school staff. So we had 3 rounds at 5 different locations for employees throughout the city. Of course, now the big conversation is, what about students? Because now there's an opportunity for 16 and older, and we anticipate that there could be approval for even younger, as young as 12, coming in the near future. We have been working with the Virginia Department of Health as well as FEMA to share information about vaccination clinic opportunities that are out there. I'll have to tell you that I get mixed reviews on that. I have parents who are not happy that we're promoting that, and then I have parents who can't wait to get their children vaccinated, so we have both sides. Our philosophy is we want to make the information available, make the resources available. Ultimately, parents make those decisions about whether or not they want to get their child vaccinated, but our job is to just make sure they're aware. And in particular, we've been working with our partners in the Department of Health in providing vaccination locations in all parts of our city. Most recently, I think we had one in Southwestern, we had one in Portlock and Thurgood Marshall. So we're trying to create opportunities within communities all over our city, and families are taking advantage of that. But again, it's us providing information because it's just one more mitigation strategy. And for some families, that's very important. Other families, not so much. But our role is to provide the information.
Well, that is good. You give people a choice, but I think it's a responsible thing to do to provide that information and even to advocate from my perspective. So we've talked about a lot. We've talked about some big changes here. Are there any other issues you'd like to bring up, either of you, before you want to brag any more about Great Bridge High School? Or?
Yeah, I'm always in a position to brag about Great Bridge High School. No, I mean, I'm really excited. It seems like I just looked on our website the other day and looked at the metrics, and they look really good. They're trending in the right direction. So I'm hopeful that midsummer we're going to be in a better position, and we can do a little bit more with the safety mitigation coming in the fall, because that's going to be, I think, an issue we're going to have to deal with come September. Because the 3-foot rule is going to be an issue. We're going to figure that one out. But nothing that we can't take care of. We'll make sure it happens.
Yeah, that will really stress the system, but we're going to plan now. That's why it's so important for us to get commitments from families on May 21st. I'll say that again, just to put that out there, because we have a lot of work to do to plan. But I also appreciate Mr. Johnson being here because, as you said earlier, our principals have been very much involved in the planning of all of these things that we're talking about. And they meet probably more than they thought they ever would, but they meet on a weekly basis. And there was a period of time where they met more often than that, where we talk about all of these things, graduation, we talk about instructional plans, we talk about issues and concerns, and athletics. So they've been at the table for all of these discussions. So I appreciate Mr. Johnson being here, and appreciate their input. And of course, you serve on a state level committee as well.
I do. Yeah, I have a board of directors on the VASP, Virginia Association of Secondary School Principals. So we've been meeting quite a bit, talking about these issues as well. So
yeah, so we're happy to come and share the information. And thank you, Mr. Mayor, for the opportunity.
Absolutely. And I really do thank you both for being here, and your leadership, as I said earlier, and what you're doing at the schools and all the principals. I know every one of them are involved in as enthusiastic about these things as you are, and so I certainly do appreciate that. And there's a lot to think about for parents and for citizens. I hope that you will be able to tune in, get information. Obviously, you can call the school system if you have additional questions, and got a lot of work to do between now and opening the school. Once again, thank you for being at our Mayor's Emergency Response Roundtable.